Imagine stepping into a world where the air is thick, almost suffocating, where the ground is perpetually drenched in swamps and bogs, where every step could mean you're about to be ambushed by creatures the size of a small car. A world where spiders as big as dinner plates are constantly skittering around, and dragonflies with wingspans larger than a modern-day raven hover above, waiting for you to make the slightest mistake. Welcome to the Carboniferous Period, a time so terrifying it might as well have been a nightmare come to life. Earth's atmosphere during this period was packed with nearly twice the oxygen it has today, which allowed life to grow into monstrous proportions. The skies were ruled by dragonflies larger than pterosaurs, and the forests were stalked by giant arthropods, like scorpions that could easily outgrow a human. The terrifying creatures of this era weren't just some sort of Hollywood fantasy. They were the real monsters that roamed Earth around 359 to 299 million years ago. A time before dinosaurs, when insects were the true kings of the food chain. The atmosphere, a breathing ground for giants. As horrifying as it sounds, it wasn't just the creatures themselves that made the Carboniferous Period a living nightmare. It was the very air. This period saw a massive surge in plant growth, leading to dense, humid swamps and sprawling forests of giant ferns and towering lycophytes. But all that lush vegetation had one very important side effect: more oxygen. The oxygen levels in the atmosphere during the Carboniferous were nearly 35%, compared to the 21% we have today. This is a significant difference, and it's part of the reason the creatures living in this time could grow to such insane sizes. Insects, for instance, relied on the diffusion of oxygen through their bodies, and with so much oxygen available in the air, they could grow to monstrous proportions. Take the Meganeura, a dragonfly-like predator with a wingspan of nearly 2.5 feet. Imagine a creature with wings that could cover a dinner plate, its eyes as large as your palm, flying inches from your face. And it wasn't alone. Giant millipedes, some of which grew to over 8 feet long, and scorpions the size of modern-day dogs roamed the swamps, constantly hunting for prey. The insects, monsters of the air, ground, and water. Insects ruled the Carboniferous, and they were nothing like what you might imagine. These weren't just big bugs. They were predators, relentless and terrifying, equipped with monstrous mandibles, pincers, and powerful legs to stalk and hunt. First, meet Arthropods, a millipede the size of a car. It might have been herbivorous, but its sheer size alone was terrifying. This lumbering giant could crush smaller prey under its massive body, and its thick exoskeleton made it almost impervious to anything trying to eat it. If you were a small animal in the Carboniferous, this massive millipede would have been a terrifying thing to encounter. Then there's the giant scorpions. Let's not sugarcoat it. These things were monsters. Pulmonoscorpius, for example, grew to about 8 feet long, far larger than any scorpion we see today. With pincers as big as your arms, they would have been perfect ambush predators, silently stalking prey in the murky waters, ready to strike with those terrifying claws. But let's not forget the giant dragonflies, called Meganeura. They weren't flying around with the delicacy of the dragonflies we see today. No, these insects were fierce aerial predators, easily capable of capturing small vertebrates, including early amphibians and small fish, with their rapid, nimble flight and deadly jaws. It's almost impossible to fathom. But yes, Earth was ruled by bugs, some of the most terrifying creatures to have ever existed. The predators of the swamps, an era of horrifying carnivores. But the nightmare didn't end with the insects. The swampy, humid forests were home to some of the most horrifying predators ever to walk the planet. And while we know them more for their terrifying sizes, they also possessed an insatiable hunger, stalking the murky waters and damp forests for their next meal. Let's talk about Helicoprion, a predator with a mouth that looked like it came straight out of a horror movie. This shark-like creature had a jawline equipped with spiral teeth, resembling a circular saw, perfect for slicing through the flesh of prey. Then there's Anthracosaurus, a massive amphibian that looked like something straight out of a swampy horror film. These were predators, over 6 feet long, with powerful jaws capable of snapping small animals in half. They were relentless hunters, prowling the swamps for any creature unfortunate enough to wander too far from cover. You also had the temnospondyls, giant amphibians that grew as long as 20 feet. These were your ancient swamp monsters, lurking in the dark waters, waiting for a moment of weakness from their prey. And with their massive jaws lined with teeth, these terrifying creatures were perfect predators of their time. The climate, a constant nightmare. It wasn't just the creatures that made the Carboniferous terrifying. The climate itself was like an unrelenting force, pushing the planet toward an environment that could drive anything living within it to the brink of extinction. The early Carboniferous saw the world locked in a perpetual greenhouse state, with high humidity and warm temperatures year-round. It wasn't unusual to see temperatures that hovered above 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 27 degrees Celsius, combined with extreme humidity. This made the environment feel like a giant tropical sauna, a nightmare for creatures trying to survive in a world where the air itself felt like it could swallow you whole. It was also a time when the land masses were mostly located near the equator, meaning there was little relief from the heat. The resulting forest environments were dense, dark, and humid, creating a perfect breeding ground for the monstrous creatures that inhabited them. Add to this the constant threat of massive swamp floods, where the landscape could change rapidly, and you had a world that was as hostile as it was dangerous. The extinction. A glimpse of relief. The Carboniferous Period may have been a living nightmare, but it eventually gave way to a new era, the Permian Period, which brought a cooler, more stable climate. It also marked the end of the giant insects that had dominated Earth's ecosystems. While the end of the Carboniferous was likely triggered by a global cooling event, it also meant the disappearance of these terrifying creatures. With less oxygen in the atmosphere and cooler temperatures taking hold, the giant arthropods and insects began to shrink down to sizes we're more familiar with today. It's hard to imagine the relief Earth must have felt after the Carboniferous nightmare finally came to a close. For the creatures that survived the transition, the environment grew calmer and the atmosphere more breathable. But for us, looking back at that terrifying period in Earth's history, it's a reminder of just how much can change in the blink of an eye. Conclusion: the horror lives on in the fossils. The creatures of the Carboniferous period are long gone, but the fossils they left behind continue to tell the terrifying story of their existence. From the massive insects and swamp monsters to the ferocious predators, these fossils are the only remnants we have of a world where survival was a constant struggle against the very environment you lived in. The Carboniferous was a nightmare, yes, but it was also a crucial period in the history of life on Earth, a time when evolution pushed species to unimaginable extremes to survive. If there's one thing the Carboniferous can teach us, it's that Earth's history is filled with dangers, and the life forms that once roamed this planet were as terrifying as they were remarkable. To see more about the prehistoric era, watch this video here.